Welcome and thank you for tuning in to our XYZ station, which is presenting an organized approach for learning math. This presentation has two parts. Part 1 is entitled Mr. Cohen, my 8th grade math teacher. Part 2, the how-to techniques for improving students' grades. Part 1 will be presented now. However, Part 2 is being prepared for a future release. If you are a student, we hope that you will try to incorporate these ideas presented to achieve a better understanding of math and make your parents jump for joy. So let's begin. As a young boy, there was one thing I was absolutely sure of, and that is I was going to be a professional basketball player. I was pretty tall, and whenever I played basketball, I was always the center. As you hear tonight, having a goal is a good thing. However, for me it proved to be a problem since it meant I spent all my free time playing basketball and very little time doing my homework. Well, in spite of my disregard for my schoolwork, I somehow ended up in Mr. Cohen's 8th grade math class. The first day I went to Mr. Cohen's class, I found a seat in the last row and slid down behind the kid in front of me to make sure that Mr. Cohen didn't see me. Mr. Cohen started to explain what algebra was all about, and he would stop and ask the class a question. Some of the kids raised their hands, but of course not me. I never raised my hand ever. However, when the question was correctly answered, I was amazed because it seemed that I also knew the answer. This was unbelievable. I couldn't possibly know the answer, so I continued to hide behind the kid in front of me. However, after I seemed to know the answers to all the questions that Mr. Cohen asked, I sat up straight in my seat, and when Mr. Cohen asked the next question, I raised my hand and answered it correctly. This was spooky. We had a quiz. What do you think my mark was? That's right, 100. And in fact, I got 100 on every test. Now I was getting really frightened. When I came home one day, I told my mom I think there's something wrong with me, and that I thought I knew what happened. I think I got hit in the head by lightning, and something happened to my brain, or maybe an alien came down from outer space and inhabited my brain, and he is the one that's answering the test questions. My mom looked at me funny and said, "First of all, if you got hit by lightning, you would be dead. As far as the alien was concerned, I think he would have selected a boy who knew some math to inhabit." She was no help. Well, everything was going along well until Mr. Cohen told us he needed an operation, and he would have a substitute to finish the course. I was sorry to hear that Mr. Cohen was not well, but since I thought I was a genius, at least in math, who cares who the teacher is? Anyway, the substitute teacher came in, a young lady who picked up where Mr. Cohen left off. And I was in trouble right away because I could not understand what she said. From that day forward, it was not too long for me to start sliding down behind the student in front of me, and I was failing again. It seemed like the alien went home. During this time, I got a job in Manhattan delivering books for a bookshop. I would take the train right from my school and worked until supper time. One night, on my way home, who do you think I met on the train? Of course, Mr. Cohen. First thing I tell him is that I'm failing, and he starts to laugh. He thinks I am kidding, but I tell him that the teacher's no good, the book is no good, and I'm really failing. When he stopped laughing and saw I was serious, he asked me what I was having trouble with. And he then proceeded to explain it to me, and for the first time I realized who the genius really was, and it wasn't me. Before I got off the train, Mr. Cohen said to me, "There's nothing wrong with the teacher, nothing wrong with the book, but there's something wrong with you. Stop blaming everyone else and find out what you have to do to solve your problem. You told me you wanted to be an engineer? Well, you're not going to be an engineer if you don't know any math." And he said to me, "I know you can do it." I got off the train. I was walking home thinking what Mr. Cohen had said. My problem was, I didn't know what my problem was. However, if Mr. Cohen said I could do it, I'm going to try really hard. The next day, I went to class, and while the teacher was speaking, I looked down her throat and discovered that I did not understand the words that were coming out of her mouth. I believed that she was talking in a foreign language. At this time I was taking French, and I realized that when you learn a foreign language, you first learn what the individual words mean, and only then can you speak in sentences. Seems in math, my emphasis was on solving problems, which was like speaking in sentences, before I understood what the mathematical definitions meant. This is like trying to speak in a foreign language without knowing the vocabulary. From then on, I did not go to the page in the book where the homework problems were, but I went to the pages where the definitions were, and I copied down the definitions of the mathematical terms involved in a very special notebook that I had. And when I went to the math class, I opened this notebook so that any word that was spoken by the teacher, I could see the definition. While the definition list was a major step forward, when a new topic started in class, it sounded like a foreign language again. To solve this problem, when I finished my homework, I would read several pages of the new topic and record the new definitions in my notebook. Then when I went to class the next day, I was ready. Also, if I had a problem understanding a specific area, I knew what I did not know, and I paid special attention when the teacher was discussing this area. Using this advanced learning technique and the definition notebook, I passed the course. Eventually, I graduated high school. I passed the entrance exam to CCNY's engineering school, and I thought I was home free. However, along came another bump in the road. During my sophomore year, the Korean War started, and I enlisted in the Air Force. However, even after spending 4 years away from college, I returned and used the same techniques to catch up, and finally graduated as an electrical engineer. My major accomplishments: received 2 patents for aircraft fuel supply instruments, was the project engineer for the design and manufacture of NASA's Interplanetary Space Vehicles Fuel Supply Controller. My last position before I retired was that of a director of engineering for an aircraft instrument company. In conclusion, for students, I would like to say that while it's great to come across a teacher like Mr. Cohen, who is tuned to your frequency, it is also rare. You must be prepared to find a way to succeed in spite of the roadblocks in your path. For parents, these are really tough times economically. People with jobs are worried about keeping them. People who have lost their jobs are having trouble finding new ones. Education in times like these is more important than ever. You can help your children without knowing algebra. Saying I love you to your children is not enough. Every once in a while, say what Mr. Cohen said to me. I know you can do it. But add, I will help you. Students that are having difficulties need that show of confidence, plus knowing that they are not alone and that they are a member of a team. Nothing is as reassuring as knowing that someone has got your back. Now that you know why I believe that Mr. Cohen was a magician, and why I can't imagine what my life would have been like if I never met him, my Mr. Cohen Story is part 1 of my presentation entitled An Organized Approach for Learning Mathematics. Part 2 is being prepared for a future YouTube release. It will consist of how-to techniques that I found extremely helpful for both students as well as their parents. It will include PowerPoint slides as well as verbal explanations, which my students found very informative. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope you have a very nice day.